Welcome to How Not to DM. I'm your host, Derek. Thanks for joining me on my quest to interview the very best dungeon masters on this plane of existence. So yeah, we'll start with you, Brian. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your tabletop role-playing game backstory.
Hi, my name is Brian. I'm one of the hosts of the Dungeoncast, and my tabletop role-playing game history goes back about 7 years now, maybe 8. I'm not sure where the line is, but I mostly played in Will's games, actually, who is also on this call. I've played in some offshoot, like one-shot stuff with people I've invited to my tables, but if I'm not in Will's game, mostly I'm running my own table these days. Got some actual play experience with a couple of shows, so I know we're going to talk about a couple of those things later, so get into it.
Cool. And I believe Will introduced you, right, initially?
To Dungeons and Dragons, yes.
Yeah, cool. And last but not least, Will, go ahead and introduce yourself as well and tell us about your role-playing game backstory.
My name is William Stark. I am also one of the hosts of the Dungeoncast. And I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop RPGs for, I think, about 14 years now. I think it was 2009, 2010 when I started. It's been a crazy ride, and now we're doing shows with it, and it's been a dream come true. But I honestly just got into it with a couple of old high school buddies, like fresh after high school. I'd never played anything like it, and it blew my mind. Changed the way I saw gaming in general, and changed the entire trajectory of my life.
Yeah. I think most people can say that they feel like that, especially if they're on this show, right? Like, or any show, they're pretty big into it. Funny you mentioned gaming. As I got into it was D&D initially, I was like, wait a sec. Every RPG, like Pokemon, like all of them are pulling elements from this exact framework. And it's just funny to like make all those connections, later on. You're like, wait a second, all of these have the same root. Yeah.
And then you get into it later, and then you look back at all those games that you loved, you see the connections. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is. Makes me feel a little gypped, but not really. I don't know if you can say gypped. A little ripped off, but like hey, wait a second. So Will, how did you get into running games for people then? Was that first game with your high school buddies running it, or were you a player initially and then you kind of decided you wanted to run stuff later on?
I was definitely a player initially. And when I first got into it, not only had I never really heard of Dungeons and Dragons or role-playing games, let alone played them, but there was not a plethora of online resources on the game like there is now. There were no YouTube channels over how to play and all that other stuff. We were completely on our own. And so the role play aspect of it was one of the last things that we got into. We were very much like metagamey, like playing it like a video game. And that was kind of the first year of my playing, and I didn't get into dungeon mastering until about a year later. And my first time dungeon mastering did not go well.
We'll talk about that in a second, I'm sure. Yeah. How about you, Brian? How soon after you started playing did you say, hey, I'm going to take a crack at this? And do you remember kind of how it went?
Oh, I think it only took like 6 or 7 games or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
we played like bi-monthly, I think. So we would, once every couple weeks. And I think by like session 7 or 8, Will kind of handed the baton to me, like, hey, do you want to try this out for like a game? I was like, yeah, sure. And that one shot turned into like a 3-shot because that's one of my biggest growing pains has been like pacing, I guess. And like over planning and like wanting to do all the content, and they're not willing to like let go what I prepped. That was pretty much it. Like it was 3 games in a row because it needed to be so I could finish what I had planned out. And I think it went okay. Went pretty good.
It's funny, like the guidelines are like 6 or 7 encounters a day, and it's like I like you wouldn't even get through like a whole day, an adventuring day in like a normal 3-hour or whatever session, especially with players being how they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. The point of the show and what I really love diving into and learning from people like you about is what you feel like are some of the big mistakes or hangups or issues that have happened in games that you've been running, and what the lessons you took away from those are, and maybe what you can share with us, so we don't make the same mistakes you did. So we'll start with Brian. Anything stick out, while you were thinking about these questions that you want to share with us?
Yeah, definitely. The first time I ever killed a character, it was
Oh yeah.
completely on accident, and it was because I didn't balance my combat properly. I one shot this guy and could have potentially one shot every single player at the table. Yeah, I didn't think there would be like an enticing combat the way there ended up being. So there's that in my corner. But when the potential was definitely there and it did happen, yeah, I clawed someone to death in one shot, and everyone just kind of looked at each other like, oh no, like uh I made like a barrier that once you escaped, you didn't have to fight. And this dude got trapped inside the barrier, and everyone else escaped but him, and he just died alone. No one could go and save him because they would die. I was like, oh man, like I think we're just gonna erase this one from the history books, and I'm just gonna call this one a loss on my part and like plop you back down because that was pretty unfair. And we're like able to sort of jokingly be like, yeah, you died. It's fine though. um, so yeah, that was definitely like definitely should not have done that. It was like a big shock at the table, kind of threw off the vibe a little bit. But a big learning experience for me for sure.
If it was like a movie or a book or anything else, that would be like kind of a cool pivotal moment. But with games, that's always just kind of like, oops, didn't mean to do that.
He got singled out, and it wasn't my intention to kill anyone in that fight anyway. So not good on my part.
Yeah, that's a good one though. Good lessons to be learned there. How about you, Will?
The one that jumps out to me, even though it's God, it was so long ago, it was during my first successful long-term campaign, even though we still never ended up ending it, but it lasted about a year and a half. But I had this idea where I wanted the big bad to show up about mid-campaign. I tried to set up like all the little telltale signs and the legends and really build this entity up. And my idea was when they showed up, it was going to be a fight, and it was going to be a fight that there was no way they were going to win. But I had this plan of how they were going to survive afterwards.
Mm.
And so, they fought it, and they weren't able even to hit this thing's AC, which in 4th edition is not very uncommon if you're fighting an overpowered monster, which this was in 4th edition. And only one hit landed because it was a crit. And it felt like a slog to me on the DM side. It didn't feel as epic as I had planned in my head. And when I talked to the players afterwards, just open table discussion, they all felt that it was kind of like like we can't hit the AC, like what's the point of this? We're just going through the motions. Like even though like it was supposed to be this intense situation from the outside player's perspective, it just was kind of a bummer, and that was not my intent. And I've never even attempted that concept ever again because it just really backfired and it didn't play out the way that I wanted.
Yeah, it's always like balancing, pacing. These are all like things that pop up, especially earlier in your experiences, right? And it's kind of hard to like tell someone how to just fix it. Like, well, if you don't want to do, if you don't want this to happen, then do that. I guess it's just good to know, like, everyone has done something like this. Everyone has accidentally killed a player and been like, okay, sorry, let's retcon that. Or everybody has like had a fight that was way too overpowered, and it just didn't feel good or satisfying, and has kind of learned from it. So it's yeah, I think it's just good to know that we're all in this together, right?
Yeah.
Cool. On the other side of things, then, how about some really fun or interesting or rewarding moments that have come from your games? We'll start with you, Will. Any that come to mind that are really fun and interesting that you want to share?
Funnily enough, one of the ones that comes up is kind of the other side of the coin of what we were just talking about, like overpowered adventures. During one of our actual play campaigns, there was like for the first half of the campaign, like these players, Brian included, were just mopping the floor with all the enemies. It just didn't seem like it mattered what I threw at them. They could handle it handily. And I wanted to put them in a situation where I could show them that the galaxy really was a dangerous place, and them up against a bunch of bounty hunters. And I really dialed it in to make it as tough as possible without it being too tough, in my opinion. And yeah, it was a fight that they barely scraped out of, and the way they did it too, There was like escapes to a spaceship involved. There was blasters. There was all kinds of creative ways to get out of the terrible situation they were in. And when they were done, they won the battle handily. It changed the way they approach fights for like the next two seasons or whatever of the game, which was very satisfying to me as a dungeon master. And it was very dramatic, and the audience was super into how it played out too. So it was very rewarding for me in that way as well.
When you put in a ton of time to something and it goes how you expect it to, that's always a good feeling. it's it's not common, but as a DM, yeah, it definitely feels good when it happens. Brian, what do you have for us?
Hold on. The timeline is a little funny because I recorded an actual play game for our Patreon in like
Okay.
2017 and 18 and 19 is the span of how long the game lasted. It's now airing on one of our feeds on top of the bones of Super Quest Saga, which was the game Will was just talking about. It's called Flashbang and the Surgeon. It's like a Batman the Animated Series inspired series of adventures with like original heroes. They have like a driver that drives them around. We play in Waterdeep, and they're superheroes. Like Waterdeep is Gotham City in this campaign, and their car, like I don't know, there was just like a moment where I was like, it's kind of boring. Like I didn't have a name for an NPC or anything yet. We never ended up naming the NPC. As kind of like a running joke in the show, but I wanted something creative and cool to come from the carts, and I was like, oh, what if you customized it? We'll call it Pip My Cart, like Pip My Ride. And so for like the next several, and I think for the rest of the games we played, I kept like this Excel spreadsheet with like all the adjustments they had made to customize their cart. And it kind of mattered, like, your carts are physical objects with an AC and HP and stuff like that. So they were doing things to like bolster its defenses and like make it so they could like have a removable bottom that was hidden, like go into it, and like leather seats or like whatever it is that they needed for it. They did like so many weird things. If I knew exactly where that Excel sheet was, it's somewhere. If I could pull it up quickly, I would and read you a couple.
Yeah.
They did like a lot of bonkers stuff to it that was like very custom, but like, it's airing to public right now, so if people want to go check it out game by game, they can.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty fun too. I could see how the removable bottom would come in handy, right? Like in every movie where they like sneak through the bottom through the sewer or whatever, I'm sure that happens, right?
They literally used it to remove the bottom of the cart, remove a manhole, and like send somebody down there to go like finish the mission or whatever. It was great.
Nice. That's fun. Cool. All right, Brian, in your time running games, have you created any homebrew rules or adopted any homebrew rules that you've heard other people use or seen other people use that you feel like add to the games, make them more fun, engaging, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm not a stranger to like improving a rule to fit the scenario.
Yeah.
I think like adding things that fit that niche situation make the story better as a whole, and it's okay to sort of like circumvent the rules from time to time. But so I don't really like in that sense. I guess I bring homebrew rules to the table. It's like the rule of cool is my I know a lot of people are like kind of on the fence about that sort of thing. But my favorite thing I've actually adopted, I play around with a lot of crit rules, but my favorite thing has been hiding the death saves from my players and keeping them secret, and having the like explaining what's going on with their wounds or their medical state or whatever, with the result of the roll, so that they can know like story wise like how things are going. But don't give him that number like, oh, I don't know, he's not doing so great, or like he's stable, he looks like he might be stable. Give him like these weird hints like how things might be going, and maybe add a perception check to see if anybody actually cares, to go to the person and like see if they need to heal. Because a lot of players, they'll hear the numbers that get rolled. You hit the nat 1 and go down 2 saves, and then it's like, okay, now the cleric's gonna heal. Like,
Right.
that's kind of not as much in the realm of realism, and like it makes the situation a lot scarier for everybody. The player doesn't know what to do, like they're just kind of sitting on pins and needles. The other players at the table are like, well, is he gonna die? Like, we don't know. And then they have to go check on him if they want to know, like they actually would, in the situation in the real world.
Totally.
That's my favorite.
I love it, and I do it too, for that exact same reason. Like I feel like you could make an argument that it's a little metagamey for everybody else to know, what they're at. And so it's always fun to like walk over and like, all right, like show me your role, or if you're doing it online, like have them send it to you privately. And yeah, it just amps up the tension, and it adds a lot to the game. I love it.
Yeah, I'm the one rolling that for sure. Like,
You roll it?
I'm not letting anybody see. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna make a death save for you.
Oh, you don't even let the players see what they roll.
Oh, like they don't know. Because I don't want them to give it away. Like they're just going to be sitting there nervous. Like they could easily, with like a show of expression, be like, "Somebody save me!" Like that's not what I'm looking for here.
Fair. Yeah, I guess it depends on how good of poker faces they have or whatever, right? Yeah. Fun. That's a whole other level than what I'm used to, but maybe I'm going to start doing that too. I'll try it and see what I think. I like it. Cool. All right, Will, what about you?
Yeah, a couple off the top of my head are kind of pullovers from my transfer from 4th edition to 5th edition when that happened. I'm not a big fan of 5e crits. I just feel like they're too, like, the fact that there's this possibility that you'll roll a critical hit and then 2 bad weapon die rolls, and it just was a very, very sorry hit, and it didn't feel like anything special happened at all. I really don't like that. So one of the things that I like to do is, the rule is, if you roll a crit, you automatically do the max damage of your weapon, and then you get 1 extra weapon, quote unquote weapon die roll on top of it. So no matter what you do, at least half of what you would have gotten at max with 5th edition. That makes sense, because in 5th edition there's that possibility of doing double damage, although that almost never happens. In this, rather it going from extremely low damage to that double damage, we've now closed the window, and you're going to do at least half of it, and then maybe close that gap towards the double damage.
Yeah, I like that one too. It definitely feels better than, like you said, like if you're rolling a great axe and you get 2 1s, there's nothing worse. It's just all that adrenaline from the nat 20, and then it's like, and poke or whatever. Just it's no fun.
Yeah, or like rolling a bunch of d6 and just getting all 1s and 2s is like, it's pitiful. Should not be it. I
think I've done 12 damage on a fireball one time. That was terrible.
Hard.
Oh man. Okay.
Welcome to Quickfire Chaos.
This week on Quickfire Chaos, Brian and Will and I are going to roll some D100s on some random tables from the internet to create a scenario to roleplay together. Will has agreed to be the DM, and Brian's going to be a player with me. So let's jump into it, Will. First of all, I want to know what sounds more interesting to have to make up on the fly for you today. Are you more interested in like a city scenario or a fetch quest scenario that you're going to send us on?
Fetch. Let's do fetch quest. That's nice.
Okay, nice and easy. Fetch quest. Not easy as in I think that you're copping out, but easy like it's easy to make one up on the fly. Okay, so let's get that first D100 roll on this fetch quest table and see what you're getting us to go fetch for you.
All right, we are looking at a 73.
You are in need of a bag of devouring for who knows what reason.
Okay.
So you need some daring adventures to go fetch it for you. Okay, cool. Next up, the NPC that you're gonna role play like we're walking up to you, getting the job from you. First off, we'll start with a personality trait of the NPC. So another D100 roll, if you please.
You got it. We're looking at 86.
Predictable, easily seen through and accessible, where most anyone can predict reactions and actions of said person by having met or known them even a short time. So you're a pretty predictable person. The next one is NPC voice. This is an accent. It's just kind of how they sound. So don't be intimidated.
All right. Ooh. Oh, all zeros. That's 100, isn't it? Never rolled a 100 on a D100 before in my life.
Really?
That was my first time.
Hey.
Wow. Okay. Sounds like they are about to fall asleep.
Oh God. Okay.
Okay. And last but not least, their occupation or job, where we might find them, what they might be doing, that kind of thing. Just give you some ideas about where to set the scene.
Okay, so 32.
32, cartographer. So a sleepy cartographer who needs a bag of devouring, and they are quite predictable. You get to fill in the gaps. So yeah, this is just meant to be easy breezy, like 2-3 minutes. We show up wherever you are. You ask us to do this thing. We kind of like barter or ask you questions about why and where and how. And then we go on the quest, but it's just like fade to black. We ride off into the sunset to go get the thing for you.
Sounds good. I'm just looking
Cool.
up devouring, and I'm trying to remember what it does because it's not a bag of holding.
No, it's gonna eat something.
It's just gonna eat it, devour it, destroy it. Okay.
There's a lot of. I looked it up as well. There's a few things you gotta worry about here. It looks like. Okay.
Yeah. So what's your D100 roll, Brian?
I got a 37.
A superstitious tattooed mage who does not cast magic but rather prays for lucky favors. There you go. You're a tattooed mage who
All
prays a lot for luck. Cool. All right, here's mine. A bard who sings out of tune. All right, there it is.
Easy.
That's a good one. So the two of you stand at the bottom of a foothill beneath the Sanctus Mons Mountains. And at the top of this foothill, you see a lone log cabin with a single stream of smoke filtering up out of its makeshift chimney. The note that you got back in the city, hiring for an obscene amount of gold, has cryptically led you here. One of you, whichever of the two of you has the highest perception on these character sheets we don't have, a small halfling or gnomish man, it's hard to tell at this distance, sitting in his rocking chair, smoking a pipe. What are you guys doing?
Out on the front porch.
On the front porch.
Cool.
Derek, who's your guy again? Remind me.
A bard who sings out of tune.
Okay. All right. Tattooed mage that prays wants luck to happen.
You're actually, seems like.
Yeah, I'm confused. What's your name, Eric?
I will be Rick the bard.
Rick the bard. I'll be Carvis.
Okay.
Rick and Carl.
So yeah, I'll probably just look over at you and say, think that's the guy who hired us?
Only luck will tell, Rick. Only luck will tell. I will say this prayer. Here, I have my lucky coin. I'll put it on the ground and I'll spin it. If the hand on the coin points to the man on the porch, then we will go. If not, we will search elsewhere. Yes, agreeable? I'm doing it.
Sounds good. Let me play some music.
Yeah, I have a coin. Yes, it's definitely him.
I guess we better approach then.
Try to walk away.
Let's go talk to him. Thank you, Goddess Tamora, for your sign.
I haven't said anything about it, but one of these days you're going to have to make some decisions on your own, and I look forward to that day. But you keep doing what you got to do.
I think not. Maybe one day you'll sing a song that doesn't make my ears bleed.
Well, that's a low blow. You know that. Come on, Carvis.
I'm sorry. I should be more agreeable. Would you like to speak to the gentleman, or should I? I clearly have a low charisma.
I'm gonna take this one, and you can chime in as you see fit. How about that?
Sure. I pray that your encounter with this gentleman goes well.
Me too. Me too.
With any luck it will. With any luck it will. Please.
Yeah. I'm already like walking up the hill. Like yeah. All right. Yeah, we're approaching the cabin.
You approach the cabin, and as you approach, you realize that the individual, who is definitely a gnome with a long white wispy beard and like very upright, kind of like pointed almost like in two horn looking tufts, white wispy hair, appears to be asleep in the rocking chair.
I might start whistling as I'm getting closer, just to make sure that he knows we're here. It's obviously a terrible out of tune whistle, but start whistling tunelessly to see if he'll wake up before we get there, so we don't startle him.
Hey, Rick, I think he's asleep. With any luck, he'll wake up.
He immediately wakes up. Who are you? Hey, you around here? Oh,
I'm kind of like do a
Thank
little
God.
bow. What did you do?
Said thank you, goddess.
because I woke up.
Yes, kind sir. I'm going to show him the note. We acquired this in town, and we saw that there was someone needed a job doing, and the directions have pointed us in your direction. So we was wondering if this is your posting and if we can help you with anything.
No one followed you two, did they?
I followed Rick. He knew the way here.
Yeah. Did
Together, right?
we get followed at all, Corvus? Did you see anybody? I didn't see anybody.
No, it's probably I'm not positive, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
He fell asleep.
Yes, we were not followed.
Well, oh, yes. Excellent. The mission that I'm hiring the two of you to do must be kept top secret. No one can know. No one can know that you came here. The forest to the south, there lies a cave. The rumor is there's mythical treasure in that cave. There's a bag of devouring, and I need that bag of devouring. So I need you boys to go get that bag of devouring for me. You get all that gold I told you about.
Sorry, you said a bag of devouring.
Of devouring.
I ain't never heard of nothing like that. Corvus, you're more of the magical type. You ever heard of a bag of devouring?
Yes, it's Carvis, and I have it.
Carvis.
Things. It eats things.
Be smart. Keep him around.
It eats things. Is this like if you poke it? You know, like if we touch it, is it going to try to eat us?
Look, I don't want to get into details. All I gotta say is don't put your hand in the bag.
Okay, don't put your hand in the bag.
Into the bag.
Or don't let the bag put your hand in it.
Yeah, okay. I think I'm getting it. Maybe we need a long stick to pick this thing up. Listen, Carvis, I'm gonna kind of like motion over and kind of huddle in with him. Carvis,
Okay.
what you thinking about this? Does this sound like a good idea to you?
I've always wanted to be rich.
Yeah. Think of all the coins you could flip once we get this much gold.
Trust me, Rick. I'm thinking about it.
All right, sir. What was your name again?
Swear they were here I found them like this. What?
I'll go put a piece of copper on his rocking chair arm. Thank you for your kindness. We're gonna go get that bag. We're gonna secure that bag, and then we're gonna secure the real bag. And I wink at him.
Just remember the stays between the two of us. I mean, three of us.
Yep, just the three of us.
And whatever you do, stay away from that barn over there. Don't go looking inside.
It's
Ain't
the
no
bag
reason.
of devouring in the barn.
No. It is not.
And I'm not concerned with the
It's not
barn.
right
Why
now.
even mention it? Not sure why you mentioned it.
Some have called me Old Predictable Bill.
Okay, Bill.
Have they now?
And you never mind. I don't care. I want money.
Yeah. This is getting more suspicious by the minute. But I suppose if we don't ask any questions, then we have plausible deniability. All right, Carvis, let's go get ourselves this bag.
Hang on, Rick. I'm kind of interested to see what other kind of off the wall shit this guy says if we keep hanging around for too long.
I think he's full of him. I think, yeah, he's. Oh boy.
Wake up.
What? No murder, Weber. What are you talking about?
Okay. Yeah. No, let's go. You're right.
Yeah. I think this might be something we come to regret later on, but you know, with any luck, it won't follow us around. All right, let's go.
All right.
You guys venture off into the forest and have quite the whirlwind adventure.
I bet we do. Eating a serial killer.
Don't cast any magic. It'll be great.
That's fun, guys.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. Not casting any magic, like just hoping that luck provides the way. With any luck, they'll light themselves on fire and die. You know, like
Yeah, if I pray hard enough, the magic just comes out because I'm a sorcerer, right?
that's kind of a fun way to flavor it.
Yeah, that's why I believe.
Yeah, like it.
Cool. All right. I well done, Will. I didn't know which way you take it, and I think you did great. And
Thank you.
you did great too, Brian.
Everyone
Yep.
did good.
And so
Yeah.
did you.
Cool. Will, tell us a little bit about the Dungeoncast, how it got started, where the idea came from, and maybe how it is going.
The Dungeoncast was mine and Brian's idea. We actually used to work together in the same location. And the type of work we did kind of just put us together alone for like, 8-9 hours a night. I think within like a week or two of getting to know Brian, like we had a lot in common, just a lot of similar interests. And I then, as I am now, and as I was for the last 14 years, have just been super into Dungeons and Dragons. I've always been, whenever I meet someone who I think might be into it, I always like tell them all about it, trying to get them to get involved into a game, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was amazing because not only was I introducing him to a game I knew he'd love, but like him and the people that he brought to that game were all just so perfect for the game. We had such a good time, and we ended up starting a campaign. It was a blast. I'd actually like to revisit that campaign one of these days because we never did get to finish it.
True.
But I think it was maybe a couple months into the campaign, we would talk about the game at work. Every day at work, there was a period of time where we were with like a larger group of coworkers, and they would always overhear us talking about the game and all the crazy things that happen because it's Dungeons and Dragons and crazy stuff happens. And they would always be really interested and laugh a lot at the wild exploits. And I think simultaneously at the time, me and Brian were also really getting into podcasts. And Brian has audio engineering degree and had the equipment at the time, and we just decided like, hey, why don't we turn what we're doing here into the show, where a lot of times I'd be explaining things about D&D because he was new to the game at the time, and a lot of humor and a lot of interesting takes come out of that, and that was the impetus of the show, and we've been running with it ever since.
Yeah, for those unfamiliar with the Dungeoncast, Will, you're very much the explain how things are, and Brian, you're very much the this reminds me of this, and or here's a good joke I just thought of, and the dynamic just works.
Yeah, I guess it's it is my job on the show to like remain ignorant and sort of be the question asker, and like I like to do improv and like add my 2 cents and like do a joke, or like I don't know, I'm always the kind of person that likes to learn things by relating them to other things. Like I learn through metaphor. And so I just sort of bring that along, try to ask questions that maybe somebody without a lot of knowledge or experience might ask. And yeah, that's pretty much like I choose to maintain, like I don't like to read about upcoming topics and things like that, so that I can be more organic in my presentation of that. I am sort of playing into a role there, but trying to bring a lot of myself to that as well.
Where do you find the new material and topics that you're going to think of? I know you've kind of for a while been theming the seasons. Each year we'll kind of have a theme, but yeah, how do you two decide on what you're going to talk about next, and where do you keep coming up with new ideas?
D&D and the hobby itself makes it easy. There's just no end to the ideas, and honestly, even we pick a topic every episode, and I usually will come up with the topics I want to talk about like 6 months in advance, just because it's easier for me to just check a schedule and be like, oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about this time. But even topics that we cover, like there's always stuff to revisit. There's always stuff to come back to, and hey, we didn't even talk about this. But yeah, theming the years really helps give the year some structure, and this one's been a fun one. We're doing artifacts and magic items is like our specialty this year. So every month we're doing at least one, maybe more episode where we're diving into the lore and stats and ways to use different artifacts and stuff, and it's been a lot of fun.
I like the years or the season structure as well, because it's like you said, it's easy to relate back to previous, specific beings you've talked about, last year, or artifacts, or whatever it might be. So it kind of helps. It's not like you have to listen to every episode in order, but if you do, then it kind of rewards that continuity by knowing, oh, they're referring to this thing or that thing, and realizing how it's all connected. Yeah,
we reference our really bad jokes from like 3 years ago.
That too.
That's been coming up so much lately too. It's funny. Yeah, it does reward you to listen to the show in order, but there's no reason people can't jump in at the most recent episode and like We are doing some skits lately that require some continuity. I'm trying to find a way around that. We just like to be a little bit repetitive. They're very, very short. They're in our break segment. It's a lot of fun to do, like improv for me. So I wanted to add something like that to the show. I've done it a few times before, but yeah, I like that. Watching the show in order does give you a little bit of a extra Easter eggs along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Brian, how long into running the show then did you decide with Will, hey, you know what, we should try to start like writing stuff and making shows out of the stuff that we're thinking about and talking about? For instance, your Kickstarter project, Starseeker's Guide to Drakenstar. Where did that idea come from? How did you transition from we're gonna do this podcast to like let's spend a bunch of time and effort to like write this whole thing and do this big crowdfunding campaign?
I would love to talk about it a whole bunch, but it's actually Will has been spearheading almost the entirety of the project these days. So I think I was involved more in like the meetings and like the conceptualization of some things at the beginning, and I put my 2 cents in here and there, but it really has just been Will taking it on. I know the idea got started because we completed our first actual play campaign that Will DM'd. He'd already poured a ton of time and resources into writing for that campaign setting. So to carry it on to be a setting book afterwards seemed sort of like a natural next step. There were a fairly large amount of vocal people asking for it. I'm gonna hand it off to Will from there.
Yeah, you said it. Yeah, Super Quest Saga had such a wonderful audience, and it was a fantastic experience, I think, for everybody. I know an emotional one for all of us when it ended. And I wasn't sure if I was actually going to try my hand at writing anything because I've never written anything in an official capacity like that. I don't know how
Right.
this works as of now. But I decided, to listen to the audience and put out a Kickstarter and see where it went, and it got funded. And so now I've been working on turning the galaxy and the universe that we ran that 3.5 year campaign in and turn it into a usable, functional campaign setting and source book. And my goal is to make a book that blends high fantasy with science fiction and space opera, and for the book to give and have something for every player, whether it's a dungeon master or just a player or someone playing in a completely different setting. I wanted there to be tools and things that could be utilized no matter what game you're playing. And so that's been my goal writing this book.
What's been kind of the most fun and rewarding part of like writing this and creating this from scratch, and then what's maybe been the part that's most difficult or not as fun as you expected it to be?
The most fun, I would say, there's two things. There's number one is getting to just write lore and build a continuity and interconnect and fill in the blank spaces of this galaxy that we spent so much time in. Has been really rewarding, and not having that deadline of I got to get this ready for the next game. Able to kind of explore the space at my own speed and in whatever direction I choose has been really rewarding, as well as learning what it takes to write a book, which I've learned a lot since I started this. The other part that's been really rewarding was the amount of fun I've been having building new systems that I've been tacking on to 5e, which really there's only been two, but I've developed two modular systems that you could tack onto your 5th edition game to make combat a little bit more interesting and to make magic item customization not only possible but really robust. And it's very different from writing prose, but I feel like I have a knack for it, and it's been a lot of fun.
You mentioned that Starseeker's Guide is kind of based on your actual play Super Quest Saga. So tell us a little bit about that, where that came from, that idea, and what it was like to create your own actual play after having been doing more of a chat show like Dungeon Quest, or the Dungeoncast is.
I'll probably baton pass to Will once again, but was involved in like the very beginning of the show's conceptualization. Well, not the very beginning, but when it was brought to the table, I think it was brought to me first by Will, and we had tried to run a campaign previous to that, turn it into an actual play and kind of complete the recording beforehand. But a lot of things sort of didn't go as we expected. It was a big learning curve, turns out. And there were a lot of things that we had misstepped on that we wanted to start fresh with. I think we just needed a breath of fresh air. Let's scrap this other project, move away from it, and then Will kind of brought this other thing to the table that he'd been working on. Getting a rhythm down for it, we basically just kept the same sort of structure workflow wise as we do with the Dungeoncast, which is Will brings the material to the show and presents it, and I sit in on the recording and improv or do whatever it is I'm there to do, and then he hands everything, like as we record it, everything gets handed off to me, and I'll do the post-production for the show and get it uploaded. And that's been working really well for a long time. So having that rhythm down, I think it's hard for one person to take on everything all at once. You got a dungeon master and produce a show at the same time. It's that's a lot.
Yeah, every actual play I know that has any kind of longevity has some kind of division of labor, like you're talking about, where other people will help pitch in on other stuff. Because prepping and then editing everything sounds like a nightmare. So there's some people who do it, but
also Brian's selling himself short. He also composed all the music for the entire campaign, and it's a great collection of music.
Yeah, that was fun to do. I think I wrote like over 30 original songs, whether it was like something I produced from scratch or I was using like Apple loops for a lot of stuff and sort of like tweaking it and arranging it in a way that sounded like original, their original compositions, no matter which way you slice it. So that was a lot of fun to do. It was taxing definitely, because where that burden of not having to prep a session like left a hole for me to do this other creative thing. And also Will kind of voiced it when he was talking about writing for Stark Seeker's Guide to Drakenstar, but he has a component in there that is supposed to kind of spice up combat for 5e. That's my biggest complaint about 5e is how the combat drags, especially when you're doing an actual play. So I took it upon myself to have at least some music in the background while people are like kind of decision making and stuff like that, or like kind of working out what the battle looks like, something to give it a little more a drama and spice, how you would play out like a Final Fantasy combat, like a boss, and that same like 5-minute track is just going to loop in the background a bunch of times. So it's fun making a music like that could like sustain.
That is fun. All right, as far as future projects that you guys are working on, Brian, anything you can share with us that you guys have coming down the pipeline?
For like future stuff, we do have a couple things in the works. We're actually, my role right now is to, I feel like, produce what we already have at like a higher quality. So adding to it what we can without taking anything away. Like I mentioned, we're doing some skit work on the Dungeoncast these days in our breaks. And I think that's been really rewarding to do. I like adding, they're pretty much completely improv. we write down a couple bullet points to play with, and then we just sort of go for it. It's right now, I mentioned earlier FBAT's Flashbang and the Surgeon. That's the superhero campaign. It's like a comedy game. It's me and my two buddies that we did for our Patreon. We're releasing that to the public now. It holds up. The audio quality is rough in the beginning because I'm learning. It picks up pretty much by the 10th session in. The audio quality is up to what our standard is today. And it's still pretty listenable. A lot of people haven't heard any like open complaints about it. It is what it is. It's like there's air conditioner running in the background, and I had a newborn in my house and I didn't have a good place to record. So you can kind of like, I try to cut a lot of that stuff out, but sometimes you just can't. So you hear the sounds of home, I guess is a good way to put it, for the first few episodes. But then we end up getting a recording space that's more dedicated and has a lot less noise. And I'm able to up the audio quality from there as a result and do a lot of things I wasn't able to do in the past, like raising the volume up to where it should be and stuff like that. So yeah, I really do encourage people, give it a listen. It's airing bi-weekly right now on the Super Quest Saga feed, but it's now taken over as Flashbang and the Surgeon. Yeah, all the episodes are based off of Batman the Animated Series episodes from the 90s. I just reworked them into a D&D session, like it's like a big continuation of one shots, pretty much. So there's breaks in between, like there would be unknown amounts of time in between episodes of Batman. So that's pretty much the premise of the campaign. We run it in Waterdeep. It's sort of like running a parallel with Gotham City and Forgotten Realms. And my players are just amazing. Like we have a really great set of chemistry between the three of us that I think people really enjoy. We've known each other for like, decades at this point, so it was just natural for us to do this sort of thing and all the improv. I highly encourage people go check it out. It's really good.
Yeah,
cool.
And you hadn't mentioned the chemistry yet, but then you did, because I was about to. The chemistry between the three of them is magical. We're in the works on an actual play. It's D&D 5e gothic dark fantasy adventure called Unhallowed, which is basically taking major flavors from things like Dark Souls and Castlevania and stuff like that. And we are doing a full production. We're going to have voice acting, bring players back in to redo lines if we want a cleaner take. We're going to do full composition, like sweeping dark fantasy sounding compositions, sound effects, the whole shebang. And we are currently about to record episodes 11 and 12 of season 1, which is looking like it's going to be an 18 to 20 episode season. And I'm really excited for people to hear it. I'm having a blast dungeon mastering it, and it's been another learning experience because it's a very grimdark, brutal campaign, which is not something we run. I'm usually a much more generous and loving dungeon master.
Forgiving,
yes. I've been to be just the right amount of cruel, and I think it's working out pretty well. Brian is playing a bard in this campaign, and he's doing a fantastic job, and all the players are. And I'm really excited for it to get done. I just ask that people be patient because we're working really hard and we want to get it right.
Cool. I love that idea. And it is funny, like I'm a lot like you, Will, in that I haven't really done any kind of grimdark type stuff yet, but I feel like it would be good for me to at least stretch myself and try it and see if there's things from it that I like. So yeah, props to going out of your comfort zone. All right, last but not least, I'd love to know what words of advice you have for people out there who are running games or thinking about creating their own content, whether it be actual plays or podcasts or writing game design, that kind of thing.
Don't be afraid. As dungeon masters, don't be afraid. Just get in there, get your feet wet. You're going to make a ton of mistakes, and you're going to get a lot better as time goes on. And the best way you can get better is to listen to your players and to talk to your players about the game. Be very open about it, and remember that you're all there to have fun, and that means communication and having fun together. That would be my main word of advice for just playing the game and having a good time. For content creators, I would say 2 things. Number 1, make sure that the thing you're doing is something that you yourself would want to consume or watch. That way it stays something that you love. I don't think the Dungeoncast would lasted even half as long if it wasn't literally something I loved. And every time me and Brian get together and record, we are usually laughing to the point of crying in a lot of sessions. And then the other thing is never stop trying to make it better, because it can always be better, and there should always be something you are motivated to push towards. That way you don't lose motivation and just kind of rest on your laurels.
I guess my advice can kind of be grouped for both. I really encourage people in this particular hobby to be passionate. There's a lot of passionate people in the game, and let that passion guide your ability to have fun. That passion is going to show up in all kinds of places. Your attention to detail, like the amount of work that you put into your games and the things that you bring to them. If you care about them, it's going to show up in your product, and your players are going to notice it, and your audience is going to notice it. They're going to notice you being passionate and caring about the thing that you do, or at least being like excited or something like that. Bring that to the things that you do. Guide it. Don't let it run wild. Like funnel it into something that is going to serve what you're doing in the moment.
Awesome. All right. Thank you both so much for jumping on and joining me. Note to the listeners, before we started, I had some issues with Zencastr, and so Brian and Will offered to record on their normal recording software and send all the files to me. So that's awesome. That's something you find in not a lot of other places where people are just willing to go out of their way to help you out. So yeah, thanks guys for that. But thanks so much for coming on, for sharing your stories, for sharing your ideas, and for having a great time with me.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man. It was a good time.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Thank you.